Hi y'all, hope everyone is doing well given the circumstances. I'm here today and I've asked Ronza to join me because who can't use a cute puppy right now? Oh, and she's leaving. And she's gone. Modelones was super nice and sent me this really gorgeously packaged polygel kit. I know a lot of people who used to get their nails done are no longer able to. So I thought it'd be a great time to break out this kit and talk a little bit about polygel and how you can do it yourself at home. I am a Modelones affiliate, which means you can use my code RED10 for 10% off all of your purchases straight from their website. I also get a small commission, so it's a great way to save a little money as well as support me as an influencer, which is really helpful for keeping this account going. You can hop down to the link in this video. You can also go to my Instagram bio and click the link there and it will take you to Modelones' website. I do like to say really quick, I'm not a professional. I'm like a DIY nail artist at home. I have no professional training. I say that as a disclaimer, but also like I know when I'm starting to use a new product and I'm like, this is my first time using it. It's cool to watch like professionals do it and see like their takes and how they do it, but also I think it's helpful to see someone who's just learning as they go a little bit to sort of get a good idea of what it looks like to be using as a non-professional, even a beginner. So just getting that out there. So first let's talk a little bit about what we need, aka what we got in this kit here. This is pretty much everything you need. The only thing they don't include in here that you will need is a UV or LED lamp. They're pretty easy to find. They're not that expensive. You can grab one on Amazon. The one that I like, I have on my Amazon storefront page if you want to check that out. The link is in my Instagram bio. But they pretty much give you everything else you need in here, which is super awesome. This particular kit is like rainbow colors, which I love. I think that's super fun, but obviously polygel comes in all sorts of colors. You can get like pinks and whites and clears and like nudie natural colors as well, so if that's more your style you can totally go with that. This has all these fun little colors. I'm of course attracted to this one, but they give you 6 little bottles like this. There's red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and then this one is a thermal color. I think it's like a purpley pink to white, so that's fun. They give you a base coat and a top coat, which are super important. You're going to want to use those. I actually really like Modelones base coats and top coats. I haven't used their polygel before, but I have used their base and top coat systems before. One of my favorites, one of my go-tos. Other things you will need for using the actual polygel, they give you a brush and spatula tool here, which is very important. You're going to want one specifically made for polygel. You can use other types like a normal gel brush, but these have the sort of spatula end here, which is really helpful with polygel, and you'll see why in a moment. And then of course it has the brush end here. They also give you some slip solution, which is this stuff here. And then one thing that you will get with polygel nails that you won't get with other types of gel or acrylic nails are these dual forms here. This is kind of what makes polygel a lot easier to use than some other products. Pretty much you just need these. You'll file them up afterwards, but this is just a very quick and easy way to get product on your nail, which can be a difficult thing. I know it was very difficult for me when I started using builder gel and things like that. So this really makes that process easier. And we'll talk about how to sort of use them to their greatest potential. I also really love that this particular kit, it comes with these dual forms here, which a lot of dual forms you will find they are like super duper curved. Some people love that. That's great. It's not quite my jam. So what's really cool is that this kit also includes some that are more flat. So I will probably end up using these just because that's more my personal preference. They still have a bit of a curve and an arch in them, which you do want just because that's going to help the structure of your nail. And it's nice to have that built in so you don't have to worry about creating it all on your own. But it's not super, super curved like a claw, which is, some people love that and that's great. It's not my style personally. So I love that they include that. So they throw in this little file, which is really nice. It's a 180 grit file, which is great. It'll work on your natural nails as well as the polygel product. And then after you've done your beautiful nails, of course, you're gonna wanna decorate them a little bit. These come in fun colors, so honestly, I think I might just do that because that's just fun. But they also throw in this little glitter. I'm not sure if it's a glitter or a powder, which are similar effect, but used slightly differently. But that's really nice. It's really pretty blue sort of iridescent glitter, and then also these loose glitters which are hollow and they're shaped like little butterflies. So how cute is that? And very like on trend, so I love that. We might give these a try today as well. Again, that's pretty much everything you're gonna need for polygel nails except for the UV lamp, which again is super easy to get. If you get Modelones starter gel nails kit, that comes with the UV lamp. I will also be doing a video on that, so stay tuned for that. If you go ahead and get both of those, you'll have your UV lamp, which works just as well for gel polish as well as for polygel. Another nice thing is that they include this little instructions booklet. I've used polygel before, but I've never used Modelones polygel before, and it's always a good idea to look at the instructions for the specific product you're using, just because they could be a little bit different, so it's a good idea to look over them. So with that all said, let's get started on how to actually do this. So we're gonna follow along with these as well. So our step 1 is basically to prep the nail. I've already prepped my nails. What it's gonna look like essentially though is you're gonna push back your cuticles, and you just wanna make sure you get all the cuticle off your nail, all that dead skin, all that bad stuff that the product won't stick to as well. You want to make sure you get that off. And then the next thing they say to do is you can whip out this file here, or if you have your own that you prefer to use, you can. And you're going to want to remove the shine from the nail surface by buffing it. Some people are super anti-buffing your natural nails. Totally get that. My 2 cents on it is that it will make the products last longer. So you kind of got to pick and choose. Am I really worried about my natural nail health and making them slightly thinner? Or am I really worried about the product lifting early? Personally, I'm in the first camp where I don't wear products that long anyways because I switch them out all the time to try new things. So I'm not going to buff my natural nails, but if it's your game, you're in it for the long haul, I would recommend buffing your natural nails. It's just going to make the product stick better and last longer, and that's all good stuff. So it's totally your own decision. I would use the lighter grit of this file. I wouldn't use the 100. I'd probably use the 180, but you can just very lightly, very gently, don't use a lot of pressure, buff your natural nail surface. And I mean like super gently, like very little pressure. You just want to get a little bit of texture going on the surface of your nail, so there's something for the product to stick to. This is also a good time to take down the length if you don't want that natural nail showing under the polygel. I know some people don't like that. I will not be taking down the length of my nails because it took a very long time to get them this long, so I will skip that step, but that is also something you can do, and that's totally something you can do with this file here. Here you could even use the 100 grit side. Just be gentle. Obviously you don't want to break your nail while you're doing that. And then you're going to want to make sure you get all that dust off, so if you have like a makeup brush laying around, that's a good way to do that. And this particular set of instructions doesn't necessarily say to do this, but I generally like to clean off the nail plate even more and dehydrate it a little bit. You can use isopropyl alcohol like this. I believe you could also just use the slip solution if you want, just like on a little cotton pad, and just sort of wipe your nails down, make sure all those oils are off of it, everything that's going to prevent the product from sticking as well as it could. So the instructions are going to have us go straight to the base coat. You can totally do that, hop right in. I personally like to go ahead and size out the dual forms before I do that, just because once you put on the base coat and cure it, it can still be a little tacky, and you don't necessarily want to take that off, but also you don't want it getting all over the dual forms. So I'm going to go ahead and size these out now, and I can show you how I do this. All right, so we have our dual forms here. Again, I'm using the more straight ones, just a personal preference thing. You're going to notice that they have little numbers here at the end, so that tells you what size you're looking at. But other than that, it's a little bit of trial and error. Let's see, we'll go in for my middle finger here. It's a little bit big, so you want it a little bit bigger rather than a little bit smaller. So there's actually space for the product to move in the sides. I don't know if you can kind of see here where the product's gonna have some space in the sides. This is a 5. And the smaller the number, the bigger the tip, which I know is a little confusing, but that's how it is. So here's a 6. So this might look about right, and if I was putting on, say, press-on fake nails, I think that would probably be the right size, but they're right up against the side walls here. So I actually want a tiny bit of space there just for the product to go in, so I'm covering my whole nail with product. So right now I'm probably going to say that the 5 is where I'm going to go, but say the 7, this doesn't even fit around my nail, so this is definitely too small. Yeah, so then here we have a 4, that's obviously too big. There I'm going to be getting some product on my skin, which is definitely something you want to avoid with a gel-like product. Getting a little bit on your skin once in a while isn't gonna end the world, but if you do it too much, you can cause allergies and other yucky stuff, so it's best just to avoid that whole thing. You kind of want to find the sweet spot between it being too small so the product won't go all the way to the edge of your nails, and it being too big so the product will run over your nails and onto your skin. And then yeah, I like to go ahead and size out all my tips in advance just so I don't have to worry about that once the polygel is flowing. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we can get started. All right, so I've got all my dual forms sized out, and now we can go in with the base coat. So now if you've used gel polish before, this should be second nature. If you haven't, just know that with gel polish, it's a little different. It's a bit of a different texture than regular polish, and you're going to want to go in with very thin coats. You want to make sure it's fully covered, but you can go in with very thin coats. The cool thing about gel also is that it doesn't start to dry until you've cured it yourself. And then once you're happy with it, you can go ahead and pop it into your lamp. And you can always look at instructions for things like this, but this one is a UV base coat, and they're going to have us cure it under a UV LED lamp for 60 seconds. All right, so now it is polygel time. We're going to grab this sort of spatula or picker end of our brush and picker tool here, and then we're going to pick out our tube here. I'm going to be predictable and start with red, but we're going to do a sort of rainbow skittle situation here. Go ahead and pop that off. And we're going to take this guy off here. This is the dual form we're going to use for my middle finger here, and that's where I want the red to be. So we're just going to take, we can start with a little bit of that polygel here, and then scrape it up with the spatula. And then we're going to go and just sort of do this situation and place it in there. We're going to end up using more, but I'm going to go ahead and do a thin layer to start. We can open up our slip solution here, and I'm just going to use the cap to put just a tiny bit in there. You really don't need much of this. That's kind of like a classic beginner mistake, if you will, is using too much of this stuff. You really don't need much at all. Oops, there's a little thing in there, isn't there? So you can actually look at how little actually comes out of this little jar here, and that's a pretty good indication of how much product you actually need. And then we're going to take the brush end here, and then we can just hold this with one hand, get this guy a little bit wet, really not that much. And then we're just going to kind of use a patting motion to spread out this polygel. And I'm going to say I already used too much of this stuff. Get off of there. And then we're just going to pat it into place of where we want it. Obviously you can see this is already kind of getting thin. I'm definitely going to end up using more than this. This is my kind of starting amount. And then you can kind of use these line guides here to figure out how long exactly you want your nail to be. If I take this guy and put him like this, I say, okay, well my natural nails already go all the way to here, so let's definitely go past that. Let's say we'll go to this one here. Those are pretty long nails. Obviously you don't have to make them nearly that long. I'm just extra like that, but that's what we will be doing. How much product to use is definitely something that is a big trial and error, and I know it took me quite some time to figure out. And honestly, even working with a new product, it's going to be a little different. It's going to be a little different to eyeball it. So we're going to learn this guy together a little bit. And essentially, the purpose of the slip solution is to keep the product from sticking to your brush. So if you start noticing that it's sticking a lot, maybe it's time to go in for a little more slip solution, but again, do not overdo it. It might cause the product to lift and other yucky stuff that you don't want to happen. And this is something that we can fix up when we're filing, and I'll talk a little bit more about it then. But you're going to want to think about making it quite thin down here towards what's going to end up being the cuticle, thicker along the middle and here, which is going to end up being the apex, and then thinner again at the end. But kind of the cool thing about polygel is you can more or less just slop a bunch of product in this dual form and fix it later with filing. I personally find that easier. Some people probably will find it easier to get it as close as possible to what they want as they put it into the dual form and then do a minimal amount of filing later. But personally, for me, I find that to be the benefit of polygel, is that you can be pretty imprecise as you put it in the dual form as long as you use enough product and enough in the right places, and then you can fix it up later. And again, this is a gel product, so you don't have to worry about it drying or curing up on you until you say it is time and you put it in that lamp. So take your time with patting this out into the right spot, especially your first time doing it. This is also a time you can start thinking about what shape you want. I'm probably going to go for a more squared off shape, so I'm making sure I get it square in the end there. Again, that will be easily changed as I start filing it, but say you want a more rounded shape, you can go along that sort of rounded guideline there instead. Kind of the cool thing about working with a color like this, whether it's a very, very bright color like this guy or if it's just a more opaque pink, is that you can see what you're doing a little better. I know when I started out, I was all about the clear, and clear is great and all, but it's a little harder to see what you're doing. So that's definitely something to think about as you're getting started. Alright, so I'm pretty happy with that. Again, now is not really the time to worry about perfection at all. A lot can be fixed with filing. So now what we're going to do is flip ourselves around and go back to our nail. And then essentially what you're going to do is take your dual form here, start by lining it up at the cuticle with that product in there, and then very slowly, gently, carefully, all that good stuff, press it into place. Now you want to make sure the product is touching the nail, covering the nail, but again, you're going to want to avoid getting it on your skin. You can always wipe it off if it does happen. It probably will happen, but it's ideal to avoid it. You can flip it around and see. So you can see I have a lot of extra product in there. My nails, my natural nails are pretty curved, so I kind of knew that would happen as I push it in, but it's easy enough to go in with our brush here, kind of smooth that on out. And you can already see in here where my natural nail sort of tapers in. It's going to be super crazy bulky. that's okay. We're gonna fix that with filing. And it is a good idea, regardless of your nail length or shape, to sort of go in and make sure there's a smooth thing happening over here so you don't get a bumpy underside. I'm going to turn around to the front and we can see a little bit of that happened in here too. And like I said, being able to get the right amount of product so that doesn't happen, and being able to get that perfect placement, perfect sizing, all that comes with time and practice. And you know what? I'm out of practice with Polygel, so here's a good demonstration of how to fix it up if it got a little messed up. And we'll continue to do that after we cure it. All right, so I'm pretty happy with that. I'm gonna make sure it's straight. My natural nails are all a little crooked, so I always have this problem of getting the extension straight. But that's pretty good. And then once you're happy with that, we can go ahead and pop it into the lamp for a cure. And this one specifically says to cure it right side up for 60 seconds, then go ahead and flip your hand over and cure the underside for 30 seconds, which is not a bad idea with any Polygel product. It is a pretty thick product, so that's a good thing to do. All right, so we've got that guy out of the lamp, and then it is simple as pinching the end here, doing a little bit of wiggling. And it peels right off. With longer nails, it's a little trickier. You want to be careful. And it pops right off. And you've got this very smooth nail here. Obviously, all this junk going on at the side, we don't want that. All this at the tip, we don't want that. But guess what? It's nice and hard now. We can file it right off. Look at the underside here. Not so bad, not so great. Obviously, we talked about how my natural nail is being curved and sort of tapered. We're going to get this gunk here. We're going to take that right off. But here, this part is pretty smooth, so I'm very happy with that. I'm going to go ahead and do this on all of my other nails, and then we will come back and shape them all. To keep myself from going crazy, I'm just going to go ahead and snip that off right there. But we will come back to this guy in a moment once I've done all of my other nails, and we can file them all up. I will add real quick that one of the cool things about working with a new product, or for in my case a product I haven't worked with in a long time and I haven't worked with at all on this nail shape, is that I can sort of learn as I go. So now that I'm doing the next one, I'm going to make it a lot thinner just around the sides along here, so I can try to minimize that issue I had with all that bulk going on over here. Again, it's super easy to remove with a file, but might as well just make it a non-issue if I can. Alright, so here's where we are so far. I put on the rest and got them all shaped up. I just wanted to stop and say I'm really loving this product. It's actually a lot easier to work with than some of the other polygels I've worked with. It's not too sticky, but it still has a really good texture, so it's easy to work with. It's not running all over the place, but you can still move it around when you pat it with that little brush there. So I'm a very big fan of that. I will also talk about this file here because this is what I've been using to shape them up. Really enjoying this file. It's nice and sturdy. It's got a really nice grit on it. Sometimes you get these like cheap files and it's just not, like I got like a pack of like these guys and they're fine, like they do the job, but it's nice to have almost like a professional quality file like this, even if you're working at home. So I do really enjoy that. I wanted to stop and talk about shaping a little bit because this was like the hardest thing for me. Like if you scroll back, just don't scroll back. Just don't scroll back in my feed. But it's really difficult, and I've tried to kind of boil it down into a few different steps because I know it can be difficult watching like a pro do it and they're super used to doing it and it's super easy, but I've definitely sort of had those trials and errors, so I want to share that with y'all real quick. I'm not quite done with the rest of these. I think I'm going to fine tune the shape a little bit more, but I wanted to get started on the red one here. Alright, so let's get started. So again, we got a 100-180 grit file here. This side here is the 180, so it's a little finer, and this side here is the 100, so it's a little coarser. So what I like to do, I'm going to try and boil it down essentially into 4 steps. We're going to take this to this, more or less. I'm going for this sort of coffin shape. You can obviously do whatever shape you want, but I'll talk about that because that's what I usually do. And it's similar if you're doing a square shape or anything like that. And obviously your nails don't have to be this long. I went pretty long, but you can do this at any length. So basically, I find it easiest to start by taking down the length. So I'll do that and take down the length and also get like a nice square here. So I'm actually going to flip around and we're just going to take this down, and I'm using the rougher grit here. So this is the 100 side. You can also hold your finger like this if that helps, not get it moving around so much. Alright, so we'll stop there for now. I'll probably come back to it, but that's about the right length. It's a little longer than I want it to be, but we will come back to that. And then I'm gonna, still going with that same size, I'm gonna work on the sides here. So for the coffin shape, we want it really to be nice and straight and sort of meet it out here. Now I think one of the things that it took me the longest to learn about filing and shaping nails, and also one of the most helpful things, is to just keep looking at it from different directions. So right now, as we're doing this, we're doing one thing here, and we'll fine tune it a little bit more in the next step, but say, do it from here a little bit, do it from here a little bit, you can even flip it around, do it from here a little bit, just so you keep seeing the shape at all different angles. And that'll really help us in a moment here with the next step. You can already see that's looking a lot better. It's a nice straight edge, and it's taking off some of that ridge here, which again we'll deal with in a moment, but it's starting the process on getting rid of that. And one thing, you want to do this a little bit sparingly because it can cause some issues, but kind of filing straight across like that too can help smooth out the edges with each other, if that makes sense. Just make sure you keep looking at it so you're not doing anything you don't want it to do. I'm going to do a little bit more off camera just because it's a little difficult to do it on camera, but I'm pretty much just doing the same thing. Alright, so that's pretty much where I want it along the sides there, and obviously I can go back and keep fine-tuning it if I want to, but the next step, which is probably the least intuitive, it took me the longest to figure out, but it's probably one of the most important, as I'm going to actually switch over to the slightly less harsh side there, and I'm going to file this way. So like when I was talking about with how you want to keep looking at it from different angles, so right now, from this angle, it doesn't look so bad. I think I'll bring in the sides a little bit more, but it's like, okay, those are straight lines, right? But if you look at it from this angle, it's kind of hard to see. If you look at it from this angle, it's not so bad because we use the dual forms, but you can see there's just some kind of extra bulk around the sides here, versus if you look at like these guys, it's a little more, I think I've heard it called like a dolphin nose kind of shape. It's going to help you keep the product where you want it, which is sort of in that apex area where it's most likely to break, but you're still going to get a much nicer shape if you do it like this. And also with using the dual form, we still kind of have this ridge in here from where the form was and a little bit of product seeped out, so obviously you want to get rid of that. So just sort of filing this way, again, keep shifting, keep looking at it from different angles. Again, I'm going to have to move off camera just because it's a little difficult to do on camera. That's pretty much what I'm doing. And then I sort of bleed this third step into the fourth step I have here, which is going to be to take a little bit down off at the tip here and as well at the cuticle. Not only down here, again, we want to get rid of that little ridge, but these are sort of the narrowest parts you want. You don't want the nail to be super bulky at the tip, and you don't want it to be super bulky at the cuticle. You want to keep most of the bulk in here. This area here is called the apex. You want it to be the highest point, and the basic reason for that is if your nail is going to break, that's pretty much where it's going to break, especially a long nail like this. So you want to make sure you keep a lot of product right in here, so it's a lot stronger there, but you want it thinner at the tip just for really aesthetic reasons, and thinner at the cuticle also for aesthetic reasons, but also as it grows out, you want is a minimal ridge there. So like I kept these pretty thick at the cuticle because I didn't really worry about it because I know I'm going to take them off pretty soon because I like to change out my nails a lot. But if you wanted to wear these for quite some time, they're going to start growing out, and you don't want like a super thick ridge here. So like I can kind of pull back my skin here a little bit. You see how that's such a thick ridge? I don't really mind because I'm going to take these off pretty soon. In fact, this one I might actually smooth out a little bit just because it is pretty thick in there. But if you're going to wear them for a long time, you really want to take that down close to your natural nail. Obviously, you want to be careful about filing your actual natural nail. Keep it on the product for now. This is another time where it's good to look at this angle. You can see we kind of have that swoop here, but look at this nastiness. We don't want that, and we want this a little thinner here. It's pretty thick. They all kind of are just because of the shape, but we can take them down as much as we want. And again, I'm gonna pop off camera, but show you the cuticle area a little bit. Now this, be careful. I'm super bad about this, but I always slip and like cut my skin with a file. I can see where to do it. Yeah, so don't do that, but it's, you know, can be easier said than done for me at least. And as I go, I kind of outline those 4 steps because I think that's an easy way to think about it, but obviously you can keep going back and fine tuning it. Like once you mess with the sides a little bit, you might have to come back to the tip. Once you start filing this way across the sides, you might want to refine that sharp line a little bit, which you can totally do.
And obviously, take your time with this, especially when you're first getting started. Like, it can be a bit of a pain, but honestly, it's going to make a big difference in the overall appearance of the nail. So I personally think it's worth taking lots and lots of time to get that shape down. And obviously, this is something I'm still learning. These are by no means going to be perfect. It's really difficult, and there's a lot of finesse to it. So it's not something you should expect to get perfectly the first time. I'm for sure still not getting it perfectly. So I'm actually thinking this is actually a little too long in comparison to my other nails. That's one thing you definitely want to be doing, is comparing them to your other nails as far as the length, and like for coffin, especially like the width of this tip here. Like I'm actually even gonna hop back over to this nail because I'm thinking this is a little on the wide side. And that is something that can sort of be in that step 2 of filing the sides here, but also think about that step 3 of filing this way, because they can get really bulky along the sides and that can affect the actual shape, especially if you're putting gel polish over them or something like that. That can really show there if you haven't gotten those sides well enough. That's one major problem I was dealing with for a long time. So just think about that. All right, so I could keep messing with the shape all night knowing myself, but I'm gonna go ahead and stop it here. Once you're done with your filing, you're going to want to take either some of that slip solution or isopropyl alcohol, whatever you have around, and you're just going to wipe down the surface of the nail, get all that dust off, similar to what we did at the beginning, just because we're going to put on that top coat. And I'm actually going to go ahead and play with these little glitter dudes. I think those are really fun and could be a fun little addition to our nails here. But first we're going to go ahead and put on that top coat, and it's the same as the base coat. Try not to use too thick of coats, but go ahead and cover the whole nail, and then you're going to cure it for 60 seconds. And before we cure this layer of top coat, I'm going to go ahead and pop on some of our little butterfly friends, as you can see I've done on my other nails. And you can pick these guys up, or any loose glitters like these, with a little toothpick, and then just place them wherever you will. You can do just a few on the corner or something like that. I'm going to go ahead and scatter them all over, and they will stick in place with the top coat that you just put on and haven't cured yet. And the great thing about doing things like this with gel top coat is you have all the time in the world to push them around, get them exactly how you want them, and they won't stay in place until you cure them. And after that, I'm going to go ahead and put on at least one more coat of top coat. With glitters like these, sometimes it's worth doing too, just so you don't have any edges catching onto anything. That can be the most annoying thing ever. Once you're happy with that, or whatever design or polish or whatever you decide to do, or nothing, then you are all set.
And here we have our final results. I think the butterflies are really fun. I love all the fun colors, and honestly I really enjoyed working with this product. I think as someone who's not super experienced, it's been months since I've used Polygel. It was super easy to pick it right back up, so I think it'd be a really great product for beginners to work with as well. Don't forget, you can head to the link in this video and use my code RED10 for 10% off your order from Modelones if you want to pick up this kit, and I will see y'all next time. Bye bye!